I'm jealous of the Atlanta Braves. Is that weird, Coca? I'm 8 years removed. I'm not jealous of the Phillies or Mets. I don't have the level of vitriol I used to have for my competitors in the NFC East. In the NFC East, 4869. I don't have the level of jealousy and vitriol against the National League East the way I did for 18 years, where I was in that division and I couldn't stand the Mets, I couldn't stand the Phillies, couldn't stand the Marlins, and then I was with the Marlins, couldn't stand the Expos. That's just how it goes. But the Braves, there's something about the Braves. I love players on the Braves. Love Ugla, love Freddie Freeman, no doubt. Big Bear, Marcell Ozuna, always will have a place in my heart as he grows up and becomes better at controlling things. But he was a part of our team in 16, and Jose Fernandez, his closest friend on the team. I just have a soft spot in my heart for Ozuna. You can love a player and not the team, but there's something about the Braves. Whatever they do it better. They're competitive. They know how to build teams. They figure out who to sign, who not to sign. They rarely get screwed with signing young players. Then, I was always jealous of the business side. This is the team. They are now, as you may know, Liberty, who owns F1, they own the Braves. And there's certain parts of the Braves business that are made public. And Terry McGurk, who is a very accomplished executive and someone I've known for 25 years, he is the chairman of the team, the chairman of everything that is Braves. These investor calls, when you're a private company, you have investor calls, but they're totally different. It's with your limited partners. And in your limited partnership agreement, it says how many times you have to talk to them. Sometimes you have one meeting a year, 2 meetings a year, quarterly meetings. You have numbers that you give them, and you do a presentation. You give them a signed ball, you give them a jersey, and they go on their way. And then you send them their bill for their season tickets. That's one kind of investor meeting. The other kind is when you're a public company, like the kind Iger just did with the announcement of the NFL ESPN deal. Sometimes you're on an investor call and an analyst call, and these are people who work for investment banks who are charged with following your company and then deciding whether they agree or disagree with what you're doing and whether your company should be bought, sold, or held by investors, by institutional investors, by individual investors. It's a big frickin' deal. These calls, the preparation that is done by C-suite level employees of these public companies for these analyst and investor calls, it's significant, way more than what you'd think than for a regular board meeting of a private company. So Terry McGurk has this meeting, and he dropped a bomb, and it was a great one. He's going through the revenue of Truist Park. He's going through the revenue of the development outside Truist Park. And then he said that we had dry powder in our arsenal for the trade deadline this year for payroll. But they didn't do anything at the trade deadline. And what he was saying on the investor call is our results, our cash available, our operating income, our net income, because when you spend money on payroll, it flows from top to bottom faster than a slippery slide full of Diddy's oil. But when you don't spend that money, then it slides right back up into place and you are good to go. He said, our threshold for investment, there was basically that investment either needed to move us toward a playoff position this year or help us dramatically in 2026. Our limited activity during that period reflected the inability of the market to meet those two requirements. Can you imagine if I had stood up after a trade deadline and I had said, there was nothing to do because we're not going to make the playoffs this year. And so therefore we couldn't sell and we couldn't buy. Wouldn't you all say to me, well, wait a minute. If you're not going to make the playoffs this year and you've got a free agent, why would you not trade that free agent for a bag of balls? Anything. If you can save $5, $10, $20, $1 million, why wouldn't you do it? If you know that you're not keeping Marcell Ozuna, why wouldn't you trade him? Oh, because he's got no trade clause. He's been in the league over 10 years, more than 5 with one team, which is called 10-5 rights, which means he can't get traded. And he may have said, no, thank you, I don't want to get traded, which is interesting. But the concept of saying publicly what every other team goes through, and I told you we budget for the trade deadline. We budget before the season starts that we have a bunch of money that we can spend if we're in the race, and our revenue projections hit. If our revenue projections and our actuals become greater than our projections, then we've got more money that could be available, or dry powder, as McGurk says, in order to be buyers at the deadline. But if we're sellers at the deadline, then we don't need the amount in our budget, and then we can actually raise more money by selling. The tricky part is when you have revenue projections that you don't meet. You're supposed to be a buyer, but your owner tells you we can't take on money. We have to shed money because you great employees in sales and marketing and PR and finance, you guys let the budget get away and we're over budget. But the Atlanta Braves are not in that position because they're doing something where they are getting an amount of revenue that just, it's hard really to imagine. They have brought in $360 million in revenue the first half of 2025. Now, I could do the math and say the second half, are they going to do another 360? Because that would be 720. And then I would tell you no chance toilet pants, because take a look at the second half. And in baseball, you're done before the fourth quarter starts. If you have no revenue in October for a game revenue because your games are done in September, October, November, December. Wait, that's the entire quarter of a year. That's the fourth quarter. So you cannot extrapolate revenue numbers from the first half of the year onto the second half. So I'm not doubling the 360 to 720. But what I am saying is let's compare this year to last year. Well, $360 million of revenue for the first half is $40 million more than the same period in 2024. Well, let's do the math. That means it went from 320 to 360. That means it's up more than 10%. Now, their team stinks. We've always told you that team revenue, gate revenue, there is a lagging indicator to performance. They ought to be more worried about next year and whether or not people cancel and don't renew, and whether or not attendance goes down the year after you're bad. Much like when you're good, you got to hang in there, because if you're unexpectedly good, you're going to get the benefit the next season because people are going to buy season tickets, and then you get their revenue and your revenue goes up. So, knowing that their revenue is not going to double from 360 to 720, knowing that the increase in revenue could also have something to do with a one-off all-star game, I think you'd agree that this investor call that Terry McGurk had may not have given the full picture. That said, what Terry McGurk said at the end was, what we've built in Atlanta is the model that every other MLB franchise is chasing because of our ability to deliver consistent results. Damn it, Terry, you're right. That's exactly what we've tried to do. Always. That's what we all try to do, and we stink at it.